Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. Today we have our regularly scheduled, our excellent nutritionist, certified nutrition, Dina D'Alessandro. And this month she's going to talk about mindful health and wellness. Please put any questions or comments you have into the chat and Dina will answer as she sees fit. And with that, I will just hand it over to Dina.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another month. I cannot believe already a whole month has passed since I've last been with you, depending on who you are and how often you show up to these webinars. So, as Matthew said, today's conversation is going to revolve around mindful health and wellness, a very vague term, but I thought it was appropriate because today is actually World Mental Health Day. So, globally speaking, we're recognizing the discussion around mental health support, stigmas around certain diagnoses, and also extending any help and guidance that we can to help you make the best choices you can if you are managing either a formally diagnosed condition or you're just struggling with some things like I do, especially around this time where we start seeing the seasonal changes take place. It gets darker sooner and not so light until later in the morning. So that might affect your overall health and wellness or healthful habits. I also figured too, we're entering into the end of the year. So, holidays are coming up. And so that might mean something to some of you, either positive or negative ways that you approach the holiday season. Some of you also might be thinking, well, I haven't really done much as far as being consistent with my healthy habits. So I'll just wait until January. And I'm going to encourage you through today's conversation to reconsider that, right? We can do a lot of damage in 3 months left in the year, but you could also do a lot of great things that benefit your health in 3 months as well. So if you are currently in an area where you can grab a piece of paper, a notebook, your phone, whatever, we have some practice exercises and things that we're going to do, not physical activity exercises, but more mindful activity exercises. If you don't, that's totally okay. As always, you can, listen in, answer things in your head. And as Matthew mentioned, you can either throw your questions or comments in the Q&A box or in the chat section. I'm going to make sure I check it every so often as I'm advancing through slides. So let me first start with just saying the objectives of what I'm hoping to share with you today are this. I hope that this brings some light into how mental health can affect our food. I mean, I'm a dietitian, so I talk about food and nutrition, but really any of our lifestyle choices. And also, we're going to talk a little bit, like I said, about mindful practices to be able to enhance and help manage our overall health and wellness, especially if we are currently diagnosed with something. Mindfulness plays a big part in that too. And as we age, sometimes, we get very caught up in just the management of our conditions. And so I want to make sure we're returning back to that mindful approach. And then I'll share also what it means, what holistic approaches means, what that means when it comes to how you might be seeing doctors or specialists in managing your mental health and your physical health as well. And we'll definitely talk a little bit too about emotional eating, because that's something that comes up quite often in my patient sessions, especially recently. That has come up almost like a theme these days. So, as always, our little housekeeping checklist here, as you heard as you were entering into the webinar, this session is being recorded. As I said, you can use the chat box at any time or the Q&A feature at any time. I'll stop along the way, but I'll also try to do my best to end a little bit shy of like the 40-ish minute mark so that I can more fully engage in questions. And I'm happy to answer any questions. They don't have to be related specifically to today's topic, so you're always able to answer whatever you want. But having said that, or ask whatever you want, having said that, while I'm a dietitian, I always say I'm not your personal dietitian, so I cannot give medical advice to you. This is just educational, informational purposes, but I'm happy to field or try to, answer anything that I'm able to answer within that realm. Please be sure, if there are things that you're stopping or starting, that you're checking with your doctors first and making sure you're getting medical clearance in doing so. All right, so let me introduce myself to you if we have never met before. Hello. And if we've met before, welcome back. I'm Dina D'Alessandro. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist. I'm celebrating 8 years last month, 8 years of being a dietitian. So this is a second career for me. I started off earlier in my career as, oh gosh, a variety of different things. Mostly I was working in media and communication, publishing. I also worked for the Department of Health as well for a short bit there, about 4 years or so, and then I decided to go back to school to become a dietitian. I'm also at that school that I returned to, which is Lehman College in the Bronx. I ended up getting hired to be an adjunct lecturer of undergraduate and graduate studies, which I was just telling Matthew, after today, my Thursdays are always my back-to-back classes. So I'm teaching from about 2 o'clock straight until 9. So good luck, Dina, trying to, grab a breath or grab something to eat in between those things. I'm also the campus dietitian. I work at the student health center there with a wide variety of patients and student population. I also work as a private practitioner dietitian too. So I do see patients on my own, very limited kind of part-time hours that I do. I do take a lot of different insurances and again, a wide variety of people, both ages, age ranges, conditions, et cetera, that come to see me. So I feel really, really fortunate getting to speak with you. And I hope that you can recognize the expertise that I bring with me. I hope you can enjoy what I'm about to share with you. And the rest of the stuff on here are some other things that I have in my back pocket as far as my skill sets and things that I'm really, really proud of. So thank you everybody for attending. We're going to start off with a discussion around mindfulness. And before I launch into this, I just want to disclaim I am not a behavioral psychotherapist. I am not a social worker, but as a dietitian, I do what is called medical nutrition therapy, meaning that if somebody is managing a chronic condition, that we educate them on their particular condition, foods, and ways that they might need to modify their lifestyle habits to better manage their condition. And we also look at the behaviorals and environmental factors about that too, because those also play a role. So some of the things that I'll share with you today could benefit you as well, tapping into that mindfulness. Obviously, if things are a little bit more outside of what I can help somebody with, and especially if you are also dealing with things that feel a little bit not so easy to manage, I would highly recommend reaching out to someone who is better qualified and getting help from somebody who is a psychotherapist or a social worker or case manager, somebody that can help you with putting together resources and strategies that better support your mental health. Okay, so here is where we're going to do a little exercise called a grounding exercise or a 5 4 3 2 1 technique. What you see on screen here, I'll walk you through each slide. We'll spend a couple of seconds just kind of discussing this. And if you want to throw into the chat what you are seeing and hearing and feeling and all these things, feel free to do so. If not, that's totally fine. But as we're doing this practice, think of how you can integrate or incorporate this in your eating environment. As we age, we sometimes lose that connection of recognizing our hunger and fullness cues, or we might be in a place where we're rushing through and eating or preparing foods kind of haphazardly. So let's start first with taking a look around you, assuming wherever you are is safe, that you can kind of just gaze about. Five things that you can currently see. I'm going to give you 5 things. I'm going to ask you to check 5 things that you can currently see. Again, if you want to share them with me in the chat box, feel free to do so. And as you're looking around, I'm going to tell you what I see too. So I obviously can see my face in the Zoom window, and behind me, I can also see my very colorful kitchen. So that's 2 things. I can also see I'm in my front room today because I have the apartment to myself. So I can see outside my window a very bright, beautiful sky, trees, and the buildings across the street from me. So that's 3 things. The fourth thing I can see is my cat because that guy is a little stinker. And whenever I'm out here doing things, he always likes to interrupt me. So I definitely have my eye on him. And the fifth thing I can see is the television over to my left, which currently is playing cat TV to keep my cat involved and interested. So there's birds and chipmunks and squirrels running around on the television to my left. So if you are looking around, tell me what you see, put it in the chat box, or just make a note for yourself. The next thing we're going to do is focus on 4 things that you can touch or feel. Touch or feel. So in my case, I can feel the weight of these headphones on my head. That is number 1. Number 2, I can feel the chair underneath me, right? So my weight on the chair against me. Number 3, I can touch my pen that I have in front of me that I tend to take notes with. And number 4, I can feel this. I can feel the fabric of the shirt I have on. So think of or try to focus on 4 things that you can either touch or feel. Number 3 is things that you can hear. So even though I currently have noise canceling headphones on, I can tell you 3 things that I can hear. I can hear outside because the window is open, so I can hear a little bit of the hum of the traffic and some noise outside. I can also hear my own voice as I'm talking. And like I said, because the television is on next to me, I can hear a little bit of the low volume of the nature sounds coming out of the television. So those are 3 things that I can hear. And if you focus on 3 things that you can hear, again, you can share that in the chat if you want to, or just think about them on your own. 2 things that you can smell, or if you can't smell something right now, what are some scents or aromas that are enjoyable to you? What are some things that you enjoy smelling? So right now I can smell, I just put lotion on my hands, so I can smell the scent of the lotion. It's kind of just like a clean smell, no real flavor or scent to it, but it's just like, yeah, it just smells like clean soap, sort of. So that's my lotion. The other thing I can smell, yeah, I can smell a little bit of what I was cooking earlier. So I had made eggs earlier this morning. So I can smell a little bit of that scent or that aroma wafting about my apartment. So a little bit left over of, the frying pan smell. Okay, the last one is one thing that you can taste. Obviously, this picture that you see in front of you, this person is not having a good time tasting something. So maybe it's something that you don't enjoy tasting, or maybe it's something that is pleasant to you. So the one thing that I can currently taste is toothpaste, because I just brushed my teeth before I sat down to come here and talk to all of you. So, the reason why we do things like this, when I'm working with my patients and clients, and even when I'm working with my students, like say during right before exam time, is things are all over the place. Our brain is buzzing. Living in New York City, there's also a lot of just like energy and noise and things that possibly distract us. So it's really a way for us to focus in on being present in the moment and taking a second or 5 seconds to be mindful about our environment, our surroundings. So, like I said, if you want to think of this in terms of food and nutrition, when you're eating or when you're preparing something, think of the ways that you can touch and feel and smell and taste and maybe even hear things like the sizzling of a frying pan or the sound of a can being open. Little things like that can help ground you and put you in that present moment. When it comes to the impact of our mental health, both positively and negatively, this can affect a variety of different things that we have in our lives. So as far as food choices are concerned, if we're dealing with mental health struggles or stress or emotions or riding high, this can lead us to making impulse purchases, which can affect our budget, our finances. It can also lead to things, like I said before, with emotional eating or craving of something, usually in the shape of something that is very high fat, high sugar, or high salt food. And of course, over the time, if this is a pattern that happens, not doing your health any good there. So these are things that we want to address and make sure we are correcting when things like that rear its ugly head. This might also affect our relationships with food. I work with a lot of people who might not formally be diagnosed with an eating disorder per se, but they do have erratic or disordered eating patterns, or they end up saying things like placing morality around food, meaning, today I was really good, right? I had salad today. I'm really good today. Or today I was super bad because I wasn't paying attention and I had a cookie. Or I feel so guilty for making these choices because I promised myself I would be better at managing my condition and I really haven't been doing so, right? So making sure we acknowledge that food is just food. It's there to nourish you, it provides enjoyment, and you don't necessarily have to have a relationship with it in that way. But that does take time to recognize and maybe adjust if it's not working to your benefit. And then lastly, in many of the past webinars and also in some of the webinars to come up as well, I've shared with you a lot of the foods that can help support your mental health. We also talked about the gut and brain axis, so things that are kind of getting in your way, stressful up here may play a role in digestive issues, or foods that you are eating that are a little bit more nutritionally dense and wholer in the sense of, foods that you can maybe recognize, like whole fruits or a piece of fish or leafy greens. These things are going to help with helping us maintain our overall health, physical health, but it also helps us with maintaining our overall mental health too. So we'll talk a little bit too about specific foods in some of the future webinars, but you can always go back and watch some of the past recordings because there's definitely a lot of examples that I give on that too. Now remember, sleep is a big thing too. As if we have mental health issues or if we're dealing with stress, etc., this can affect our quality and our quantity of our sleep. So we want to have at least 7 to 9, ideally, hours every night consistently throughout the week. We want to wake up well rested and refreshed. Doesn't always happen like that. Sometimes there's interruptions. We roll around, we get up to go to the bathroom, or we're dealing with insomnia because something is stressing us out, or we can't figure out how to fall asleep, or we get stuck. I don't know about you, but I get stuck sometimes on social media or, thinking of current events that really make me worried and concerned. Maybe that's the same thing with you. So, things that can affect our sleep habits, we do end up seeing in research, and I've shared a lot of this too in past webinars, that if we notice patterns, we're talking consistently, weeks upon weeks, months upon months, where our quality and our quantity of sleep are being affected, this can end up putting us more at risk for neurodegenerative diseases like dementia, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. So, if I don't even talk to anybody about food and nutrition sometimes. I will go directly to what's your sleep like, because that can affect a lot of different things and vice versa, right? Mental health can affect sleep, and sleep can then affect how we are digesting, our metabolism, and then also putting us more at risk for certain things, like I said, neurodegenerative disorders, or not helping us with managing things like diabetes. We've seen sleep disorders affect the way that blood sugars spike, or if people are taking insulin or metformin or different kinds of medicines, they don't work as well unless people are having control over their stress management and their sleep habits. It can also affect our physical health, as I just mentioned too, because you're going to be more at risk for certain things. And then on the positive way, if you are able to create bedtime routines, wake up routines for yourself, relaxation techniques for yourself, that could help benefit your sleep as well. Next up here, how our mental health might affect our physical activity. Well, if you're not really feeling up to something, you're feeling depressed about something, you're stressed out about something, it might create a barrier for you to be able to move around and get some physical activity or exercise, depending on however it is that you define that, whether it's a formal routine that you've been doing and now you're just not doing it anymore, or even just getting up and going for a walk, right? I don't want to, it looks so nice out. I don't feel like getting up and moving around. With forms of physical activity, we have seen that it can actually play a beneficial role on reducing our anxiety and improving our overall mood. And I'm sure if I ask some of you to give me feedback about what happens when you work out, or what happens when you spend some time outdoors, or what happens when you just get your body moving in some way, shape, or form, you might share with me that it does. It does help with managing your overall stress. So I tend to encourage people to just move what you can, but try to be mindful about it. Even if it's just tidying up around your home, honor the fact that you have a neat, tidy place, honor the fact that you're getting up and you are able to be mobile. Or if you enjoy being outdoors, take a look around. I was gonna say breathe in, but breathing in New York City is, sometimes questionable. So make sure you're in a space that you have that can be considered fresh air. Try not to breathe in too much if you're next to a highway, but move what you can when you can and try to do so mindfully. One of the other things that comes up a lot is, especially if somebody is trying to manage a chronic condition, as I said before, creating that relationship of an action and a reaction, or an action and a response, we end up doing what sometimes is called negative self talk. And this might happen for you, whether it's food related or anything else, right? You end up having some sort of action or reaction that did not sit well with you. Maybe you feel ashamed or embarrassed. Maybe you feel guilty about stuff. And you end up saying things like, what's the point? Why do I bother? I'm really bad at this. Why am I even trying? I'll never get this right. I might as well give up. So when you think of things like this, I want you to be mindful about that too. Maybe even right now, you can think of a time where you said something negative to yourself for whatever reason it was. So if you feel open to sharing that in the chat, please feel free to do so. If not, let's just take a moment and think about that. When was the last time, or how recently, or when did you recently say something negative to yourself? Whether it was just in your head or out loud, you might have said it. So think about a time that you might have done that. Or maybe a time that you've heard someone else say something like that to themselves. Maybe you have someone else in your household or a friend of yours that's always kind of down, negative, doesn't really see the positive things in life and tends to always be be a bit negative and the language that they use. So I'm thinking for me, like I said, with some of my patients and clients, they'll say things like, I was so bad, I can't believe I did that. Or in my case, I do tend to be a little bit mindless sometimes if I'm juggling a lot of responsibilities or if I'm overwhelmed with work. And so even something like stubbing my toe or missing a deadline, right? I immediately say to myself, oh my God, I can't believe how stupid I am. Am I really that stupid? No, I'm probably not stupid. I was probably just in a moment of mindlessness, and so it's taken a while for me to recognize that, and sometimes if I do say it out loud, my boyfriend who I live with will say things, be careful how you talk to yourself like that." So, hopefully, bringing this up, you'll be able to be a little bit more mindful about that too, or if you're listening to somebody else say that about themselves, maybe that's something you can pick up on as well. So, here are some things I'd like for us to consider. When you are in the zone of feeling down, if whether or not you have a formally diagnosed mental health condition, or you're just feeling some seasonal affective disorder issues going on, or something has happened where it is affecting your stress levels, your emotions, try to be, again, present in that moment. A mindful practice that you can engage in, a few things here is, what is it that I'm feeling? Am I feeling stress? Am I feeling lack of control? Am I feeling depression, sadness? Am I feeling anger? Try to put a name to the thing that you are currently feeling. We see sometimes that if you are able to label it, then you are able to move on to that next question, which is, why am I feeling this way? Is it because somebody said something to me that made me feel not so great or that made me question things about myself? Am I feeling this way because I don't feel like I can have control over a situation and that's really making me upset or it's causing me to feel stressed in some way? Am I feeling this way because it is a legitimate reaction that I'm having to something? I just learned that, maybe I have a condition that is not so great, or I'm learning about someone else in my life that's going through some situation that makes me feel really sad about that. So, the why am I feeling this way? Or why am I feeling this way is I'm feeling emotional and stressed out, and I'm going to start grabbing some food or going off track with some of the habits that I promised myself I would do. So the why am I feeling this way could be the cue or the trigger that you can potentially pinpoint. And so that leads us to the question number 3. What can I do next to help myself? Now, helping yourself can be correcting the action or reaction. It could also be just sitting with it, right? A lot of times it's okay to have to process negative emotions. It's okay to not have to feel like you're filling time being productive and keeping yourself busy. It's okay to just sit with it. It's also okay if you feel like you want to move forward and do something about it. So maybe the next thing that you can do to help yourself is say, okay, well, I fell off track because I wasn't feeling so great. I ate something that I didn't feel was maybe in line with the healthful habits that I decided to do for myself. And so next time I'm going to make sure that I have in my house, in my pantry, in my refrigerator, things that will be a little bit more in line with what I want to do to support my overall well-being. So I'm going to make sure I have good fruits and vegetables in there, and I'm going to maybe meal prep for myself. Or the next thing you can do to help yourself is create a structure of something. Okay, you know what? I'm going to put my clothes out and I'm going to go for a walk tomorrow or tonight, and I'm going to leave my sneakers by the door. So, what is the next thing that you can potentially have control over? Because ultimately, it's this, right? I tend to think of this almost like the worst case scenario process. If you ask yourself the questions of, there's nothing I can do, I give up, whatever. Okay, well then hopefully that might alleviate any potential wearing that it has on your emotional health, your mental health, your stress, etc. I can't do anything about it. So I'm going to try to just let it go, right? Let it go. Alternately, if the worst case scenario is something very catastrophic, okay, then that gives us an opportunity also to kind of process through the steps. If this happens, I lose my job, or there might be a death in the family, or there might be an accident happening. Okay, so let's see how we might be able to go through those steps as well to maybe prepare ourselves for something that might not be so, or it might be more in the, realistic negative potential steps that are coming forward. Let me see if I'm able to process that. All right, well, you know what? I feel like I made peace with this. I feel like I have everything that I need in order. I feel like I'm able to, share with my friends and my social circle that I need support from them. And so I feel like I'll be okay. Even if worst thing happens, I feel like I'll still be okay with what's coming next. So again, think of whatever might be coming down the line for you in the following months, whether it's seasonal changes that are happening and that are affecting you, if it's the holidays that are coming up that might bring up some positive or negative emotions, or even in very specific situations, if you find yourself feeling a little bit down or feeling a little bit off or feeling a little bit stressed, of what you can do to ask yourself these three questions. All right, so now we're going to try to reverse reverse that language and turn negative talk into positive talks, positive thoughts. The one thing I tend to say, and this, it helps if you do have people in your life that you love and want to see succeed. So one thing I try to say is if you have a friend, a family member, a loved one, if they were using the same language that you're using on yourself, what is it that you would say to them? How would you support them? Would you berate them as well? No, odds are you'd probably say that no, now that's it can't be that bad. Or please don't use that language about yourself. That's not true. Is that true? That's not true. Let's back up in there. The one thing that comes up a lot when I share this kind of discussion around changing negative language into positive language, a couple of things. Number one, it takes you that long to get to where you are. So if you are the type of person that constantly uses negative self-talk, you're probably used to that. And maybe it goes even as far back as being raised in a family that didn't give you a lot of, positive language. Maybe they did berate you or they used negative discussions around you that didn't make you feel so great. So you kind of got caught in that zone and that's how you've lived the past decades of your life. And so honoring the fact that it's going to take time to kind of undo that. That's number one is however long it took you to get to that point, it might take you just as long to get out of it. The second thing is people will say, yeah, but I don't believe it. I don't believe that I'm smart. I don't believe that I'm good enough. I don't believe that I can succeed. Well, why do you believe all the negative stuff? Odds are that you are creating an environment that provides you with feedback that confirms, or you can say, right, factually speaking, well, I have a history of not doing this, or I have a history of not making great choices, or I have a history of being this way. And so, how would I possibly believe that I could turn that around and be the opposite? And to that, I challenge you, just try. Just try to say it, right? Instead of waking up and being, ugh, ugh, this day, I hate everything. Things are miserable. I'm no good. I'm not smart enough. I can't do this. Say to yourself, I can do it. I am excited about taking this step. I look forward to the next days of my life. I encourage myself to improve, and I really do think that I'm able to succeed. So again, if you want to include in the chat here, or if you want to consider some of the things that you've said to yourself previously, how might you convert that? Whether it's the opposite language or a softer way of talking to yourself, what might be some of the ways that you can consider turning that negative talk into positive talk? And I'm trying to think too, like I said, with food as an example, because that's again where my realm is here with food and nutrition, is if somebody is dealing with emotional eating or feeling like they can't keep up with certain things, like they are unable to be successful in the habits that they're setting out for themselves to do, then I try to say whittle it down to even just like a 1% increase. Right. So maybe it's not, I'm going to be the best person at this. Maybe it's my next meal is going to be spot on. When I eat my next food, when I make my next choice, when I create for myself this next whatever I'm eating or doing or going out for, I'm going to make a better choice at this. I know that I have the ability to do so. So again, think of things in your life that you might be bumping up against a little bit of pushback and see how you can switch around that negative talk into something positive. It takes time. Okay, next up here, I wanted just to clarify a little bit of the language around this thing called holistic approaches. This is, I think, embedded in the subtitle of what we sent out with the flyer for this discussion. So, on my end, as a healthcare provider, I am qualified to be I could work in a hospital, I could work in an inpatient setting or an outpatient setting at a clinic. And when we look at a clinical or a medical professional, we do look at a very structured evidence base, meaning that we're looking up research articles. We have a lot of evidence behind things that help us address specific health conditions. So we're educating our patient populations using our textbooks, our resources, and a lot of literature, excuse me, that has been created through case studies, research, studies, et cetera, right? So we have scientists that work behind the scenes and all these things that they do in the lab or they follow populations around. And so it can feel very clinical when you are working with your healthcare specialist or healthcare professional because they might just be all about the books language. The holistic approach is a little bit of a softer side. And I will also caveat by saying this in the healthcare profession, some people can venture off and become specialized in more of what's called an integrative and functional medicine approach, where they look at different modalities. It's not just the Western view, but it's also more of an Eastern approach where they take into account things like traditional Chinese medicine and things along the lines that are not maybe as well studied here in the States. But at its very base level, taking a more holistic approach, especially as a healthcare professional here in this country, we are looking more now at the whole person. And some of my colleagues are getting trained in how to what we call be more a little bit more culturally humble or culturally competent, and also recognizing, because I think I've brought this up in so many of the other webinars, what they call these social determinants of health. Not just, eat less, move more, get better sleep, take care of your stress, but like what are the both internal and external factors that are potentially affecting both your environment and your behaviors. So if you remember before, I talked about what I do is called medical nutrition therapy. So I'm qualified and trained, and I have, ongoing continuing education to help me learn about the most recent current studies and approaches that we are taking towards specific health conditions. But I'm also trained in parts of counseling, of understanding and recognizing behavioral issues, mental health issues. I also work with interdisciplinary team members too that can help support myself, but also the patient with whom I'm working, of recognizing that it's not just the symptoms of the disease that we need to address, but it's also the overarching amount of factors that potentially could be an issue. So we're talking about things like finances, relationships, work environments, other things that might, whatever, outside stuff wherever you live, um, even things in your own current residence, like maybe somebody is really loud upstairs and that's affecting how you sleep, or there are people in your household that don't support the way that you're trying to manage your own condition. So you're, kind of like at this conflict all the time of those things happening there. So the even though we as the healthcare professionals are trying to, or at least the new generation of us are trying to take more of a holistic approach, we are sometimes obviously hitting up against a lot of challenges when it comes to, especially if we are held to the clinical or the facilities rules and regulations. So depending on, reimbursement and time and how many people are on our schedule, we might not be able to go through everything we want to go through with you if we only have 15 minutes of time, or if you can only make it in to see us, once a month instead of once every week. So that could also be a condition of looking at an external factor too, that what is preventing or what's causing a barrier or an obstacle for our patients to be able to see us more regularly, so that we can keep digging into that and not just having a checklist with a meal plan saying, here's a list of foods you should and shouldn't eat, and sending you on your merry way. So think of that too when you are working with yourself, right? How easy things are, how difficult things are to address a specific health condition that you may be managing versus or in conjunction with all of the other factors that might be going on that might not be within your control. That might be things that are not excuses. These are reasons why you might be having some barriers or some challenges of being able to do what you need to get done. So I hope that that makes sense. And maybe you're currently working with healthcare providers that do sit and have a lot of time to spend with you and are able to go through a lot of questions or send you questionnaires that you can answer that aren't just about food and physical activity, but environmental factors and other things that might play a role in your overall health and well being. So, in taking that into account, I want to share with you a little bit of a broader approach to help you with managing overall mental health issues, stress, and specifically, of course, emotional eating. So, we did a couple of things earlier with that whole grounding technique, but we also noticed too, I know for myself, when I get really stressed out or if I'm juggling a million things in one day, I swear I stop breathing. Like, I sit there and I go, like, I don't think I stopped to take a breath, and you would think that that would be an involuntary process, is for my body just to keep up with the breathing, but sometimes I'm holding in my breath, or I'm capturing some sort of stress that is manifesting in my respiratory area that's not allowing me to breathe. So, keeping an eye or focusing in, being mindful of that breath can be one way to help you engage in a holistic approach to manage stress, emotional eating, etc. Right? Just breathing in, breathing out. There are a lot of free apps and things on YouTube, or maybe even your own healthcare providers include this as a discussion or part of their techniques around helping you manage your mental health of just breathing in and breathing out. Sometimes people do things called box breathing, where they'll purposely hold their breath in for a certain count, like four beats, and then they'll slowly exhale for 4 beats, or they'll hold their breath for 4 beats and then exhale for 4 beats. So that could be something to maybe help with also keeping you unstressed, allowing you to be present in that moment, and also be aware of what your body is physically going to in that time. Same thing with that second bullet, moments of stillness and body scanning. So, this again, as we get older, we sometimes might not really feel as closely connected to our physical body because maybe we're managing a lot of conditions. Maybe we are constantly in pain because our joints ache. And just by nature, as you saw from our last month's discussion around longevity, our bodies just naturally undergo a lot of wear and tear as the decades progress. So, maybe it's an opportunity for you to kind of take note in yoga, I think this is called yoga nidra, where people from top to bottom will say, like, tense up your face and then relax your face, tense up your shoulders and then relax your shoulders, tense up your stomach and then relax your stomach, tense up your legs and then relax your legs. And it kind of allows you, again, whether you go from top to bottom or bottom to top, is being focused in what your body is actually doing in that moment. Maybe I notice that my back when I'm sitting in a certain way, yeah, okay, fine. I can recognize something's a little tight there, but I also know if I haven't allowed myself to take a break or if I feel really stressed about something, I immediately feel a pinch towards my lower left back where I have a recurring injury. And injuries are sometimes also manifested in ways based on stress or other factors where we're not focusing on something or forgetting to pay attention to something. That moment of stillness too, a lot of people will say I'm eating out of boredom, or I'm so bored. I would love to be bored. I would love to have 5 minutes to myself where nobody's telling me anything or talking to me, or my brain can be quiet for 5 minutes because I'm always rattling off checklists and things here. So that can be an opportunity too. Just being still, setting a timer and being still. And as you can see here too, a few other options as well, right? We did a little bit of that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 with mindful listening. We talked a little bit about maybe scents or even lights, putting candles out, allowing yourself to create an environment that is helpful and helps you manage stress. Maybe that could also be part of your wind down routine at bedtime. The kindness discussion we're going to talk about in a second, kindness mantra of being able to be kind and compassionate to yourself, that ties into also your positive self-talk. And, recognizing it's a bit of a privilege to be able to say, I can just breathe in and out and feel cool about everything, but maybe you're not feeling so safe in your surroundings, your environment. Maybe just visualizing a space for yourself where you are in control of things, where you do feel safe, where you do feel secure. And maybe that in itself can help reduce the stress too. If you remember, I think it was in the February discussion around cholesterol and heart health, we did talk about chronic things. Actually, inflammation came up in it too. The inflammation webinar, I think we talked about that too. We're talking about chronic states of things that can put us more at risk for conditions, right? So if you're constantly in a state of worry, concern, stress, your body is going to turn that into something. It's going to affect your cells. And we have seen a lot of correlations about this when it comes to stress and high blood pressure, and even stress factors and cancer, because again your cells are not being given a chance to be protected. So all of these things, or maybe a couple of these things, are some things that you can take a look at for yourself. I'm going to share with you here, while I'm going to keep my eye on the time in the next 5 minutes or so. I want to wrap up, so if you have any questions I can field them. But I want to share on screen here a few visual images that I keep around me that make me automatically just, I feel my blood pressure just decrease by many, many points, or they remind me of things that I enjoy doing and that I should keep doing. So even if I can't afford to go to a spa, I can afford to light some candles in my house and maybe take a nice hot shower and just spend some time wrapped in a blanket or a towel or a robe, and just allow myself to decompress in that way. Maybe that's something that you enjoy doing too. I enjoy writing and journaling. This is something that I do quite often. Maybe that's something you do too. So again, if you're wanting to engage in the chat, you can give me a thumbs up or let me know if these are things that you also do as far as de-stressing habits. I'm a coffee drinker, but I'm also a tea drinker, and sometimes I'm just a water drinker all day. It depends on my mood. But I really enjoy setting up a little routine like this at the end of the night or even at the beginning of my day, just to kind of empty out my brain, especially if I am in times of a little bit of turmoil where there seems to be a lot going on. It helps me just to brain dump and get stuff out on the page. This way I can continue the rest of my day knowing that I don't have to worry so much about things that are in my head. So that might be something you enjoy doing too. Having flowers around, whatever the environment is called for. Music. I forget about music. I was just saying, I feel like I'm on webinars all the time. I do virtual teaching, so I'm constantly in front of a computer, and when I'm walking back and forth to things, sometimes I'll throw on a podcast, but this is just like, words coming at me all the time. I've invested a lot of money in albums and CDs and downloadable songs and stuff. So, and even on YouTube too, like putting on a very lo-fi channel where somebody's just doing like an instrumental jazzy type of things. I really enjoy stuff like that. And I will also admit, sometimes I enjoy throwing on, because I'm a child of the Gen X generation, thrash metal and mosh pit music where I just bang my head back and forth just to get out a lot of the stress. Try not to hurt my neck when I'm doing that. So maybe music is also a way to help you decompress or de-stress. And lastly, for me, yes, of course, I'm a dietitian, but listen, I'm also a human person and I also have tendencies to emotionally eat. I also have a sweet tooth, but I really enjoy when I can sit and have a very vibrantly colored bowl of food in front of me. And you can see here, right? There's chickpeas there that can come out of a can. There's quinoa. That's something that is pretty inexpensive that I can make and create for myself and keep on hand to rotate in and out of my meals. Chopped up tomatoes, some sauteed or roasted butternut squash there, and avocados. I live on avocados. I have maybe 2 or 3 of these a week. Have them up, put a little sprinkle of salt or sesame seeds or something on them, or sprinkle of hot pepper or pepper flakes. And I really enjoy eating like this. This is actually very indicative of the things that you will see in my meal plan. I tend to just basically open up my refrigerator, throw what I find in a bowl, and just eat like that. So maybe that's something with you too, right? Being mindful of how you're designing your meal, looking and taking a moment to check out the bright colors, and engaging in whatever way that helps support your overall mental health. All right, let's go into the kindness and gratitude discussion. So, a lot of the stuff too that we're talking about, again, like I said, sometimes it's going to take a minute for you to get there. I often find that if I'm feeling really all up in my head or I get stressed out, sometimes I go and volunteer for something. So maybe that's something you're already doing, maybe doing good deeds for others, maybe it entails just checking in on a friend or working at a soup kitchen or whatever. I also think something too, especially as we're aging, we might want to improve on things. There's always room for improvement, and it's never too late to do anything. I truly believe that. But there's also definitely, pardon the noise outside because I'm hearing an ambulance siren. But there's also a moment in time where you just have to accept who you are. I know that there's definitely habits that, like, I'm not going to be a marathon runner. I'm just not. But I I do enjoy moving around. I do enjoy going for walks and doing runs here, but I'm not planning on pursuing that. And there's things that I'm starting to take off my list that I'm just like, you know what? I think I just don't want to put the pressure on myself to have to do all these things that felt very ambitious and lofty at one point in my life. And now I just want to downgrade a bit. I'm learning to just accept this is not who I am. And not in a bad way, not like, I don't want to talk to people because I'm a recluse, but more in the way of like, I'm honoring what my personality trait is, what my character is, and I'm just allowing that to shine. I'm focusing on the strengths that I have. So if we have some time, let me actually do this in more of a 1 minute instead of a 2 minute because I want to keep my eye on the time here. I'm going to set a timer for us. Let me do it for 1 minute. And I want us to do a gratitude exercise. This is also a way to practice mindfulness too. Whether you have a piece of paper in front of you, or if you don't, you can think. If you're sitting next to somebody, you can talk to them about something that you are grateful for. If you have your phone in front of you, maybe you can text someone you love that just lets them know that you're grateful that they're in your life. So I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute and I'm going to mute myself. And I want us all to think, write, or share what you are grateful for. What are things that you can focus on out of gratitude? Okay, so we'll start that right now and I'll let you know when the clock stops. Okay, that was 1 minute. Whenever I do things like that, I feel like it's a lot longer than it is. This just goes to show that I sometimes don't take 1 minute for myself. So again, if you are interested in sharing in the chat what came up for you, what you're feeling most grateful for, please feel free. You do not have to be obligated, no pressure to do that. I'll share with you what came up for me was my circle of people that I love, like my friends, my family, my coworkers, people that I feel support me and vice versa. Like I know that they rely on me to help them through some hard times as well. I'm also grateful for the internet and technology. As much as social media can really be the bane of my existence, things like this provide me with an opportunity to make this very large world much smaller. Like I love being able to teach and learn through webinars where I might not be able to go out and physically be someplace. I also feel like I can live vicariously through other people. One of my favorite things to do is go onto Google Maps and search random places on the globe and look at the pictures that people have posted on there. So like Belize or Thailand, and even within those places too, like tiny little places within those larger places, because this is what it is like to be from the future right now, right? We have the ability to post reviews online, but we also have the ability to take pictures and share with other people, pictures, photos, etc., our experiences. So I just love watching what it looks like to be on a beach, or as somebody's walking through a forest, or somebody's eating at a restaurant that I probably won't ever get to. I just love doing things like that. The other thing I'm very grateful for is having a roof over my head, having water, running water, and having, a basic need. So I feel very privileged and happy that I'm able to have access to that. I also recognize not everybody else does. So maybe that was helpful for you of trying to find a little moment to focus on gratitude that also connects to the positive discussion, self-talk. So that's something that you can maybe do on your own as the days and the weeks progress. Okay, so I'm going to start wrapping this conversation up. And I want to just remember to share with you striving for progress, not perfection. We say this all the time. Even if you got to be perfection, I mean, like, how hard, difficult, unsustainable would that be to keep up? I don't think we can be perfect. It's too much to ask of us, but making sure that we're just making mindful choices throughout our lives and being compassionate to ourselves and to others. We also have good things and bad things happen, right? There's good and evil in the world. There's uncomfortable and comfortable situations that we have going on. It's okay to just be in that moment and just say, I don't love this right now. I'm having a reaction. I'm having a very strong reaction. I don't necessarily need to do anything about it. Maybe I just need to sit with it and let it take over me. And maybe I need some space before I can figure out what to do next. And also recognizing that patience and change do take time. How much time? Who's to know? And there's also, relapses that happen. What you have kind of in your consistent habits now, you might get injured. There might be an illness, an injury happening. There might be, again, seasonal changes, holidays happen. Somebody needs you for you to step out of what your normal current habits are. And you might have to redirect everything and then pick up where you left off. And it feels a little bit challenging to do that. So recognizing that that's going to take time. And also, like we said before, whatever brought you to this moment in your life right now, it's possible that the changes that you want to make, the improvements that you want to make might also take time. So I have a little homework assignment for you between now and the next time we meet in about a month. Do a couple of things, whether this is at home or, I mean, you could also be outside of your home. It's okay, but try to choose one meal or one snack or something that you are going to be eating. Try to eat without distractions and do the thing that we said in the beginning of the webinar, which is go through that kind of grounding exercise. Like, what are you smelling? What are you tasting? Let it sit in your mouth for a sec. Right? Don't just shove things down and off you go. Like, allow yourself to savor the food. Let it be part of your body for a moment. Recognize when it's digesting, how it feels in that way. The other thing too, this doesn't have to be every single day, but might maybe keep a little notepad or something in your phone, whatever, wherever you take notes. And at the end of each day, for however many days you want to do this, 3 days, 7 days, a whole month, totally up to you. Try to reflect on the good and the bad, right? Try to say, I'm grateful for these things. I'm happy about these choices I made. And I'm also recognizing some of these emotional triggers that took place and maybe my reactions about that. I look at that like I'm collecting data. This is just a way for me to recognize my patterns and see if and when I can adjust them accordingly. All right. So as usual with our ends of our webinars, I always ask you consider the next steps for yourself. So taking into consideration everything we talked about here, especially in relationship to food, nutrition, but really any of your healthful habits. What are some things that you would like to start doing that you haven't done, or you said you were going to start doing and you didn't do it? What are some things that you're currently doing, being consistent at, and want to remain in your life? You want to keep doing it. Maybe that is something like journaling. And lastly, what are some things that you plan on stop doing? Some things that no longer serving you, conversations you might have to have about setting boundaries with yourself or with others. What is something that is not going to get to you to get you to be successful in that next step of however you want to get in your overall health and wellness. All right, friends, that is it for me. I'm cutting it up right upon the 1 hour mark here. So thank you so much for joining me. Our next webinar next month will actually be on World Diabetes Day on Thursday, November 14th. So I'll talk to you about preventing and managing type 2 diabetes that day. Thank you, Matthew.
Well, thank you, Dina. That was a pleasure as always and very informative. We have a quiet group today, not too many questions, if any. But this was a different kind of presentation. Really appreciate it. Oh, there we go. And
There, Dilcia, thank you.
um,
Thank,
yeah, and we really do appreciate the wide variety of topics that you present us.
thank you. I appreciate all of you too. Thanks so much.
Okay,
I'll
we'll see you
see you
next
next
month.
month.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye, everybody. Thank you.